number of women stood off watching from a distance, among them being Mary of Magdala, also called Mary of Bethany, Marmaryam, and Mary the mother of James the younger and Joseph, and Salome, who had followed Jesus, administering to his needs in Galilee. There were also others who had come to Jerusalem with him, but the only disciple there was James. When the women wept with pity, he said to them, I see now what I was blind to before. Let us not waste tears in futile pity, but strengthen our hearts to his sacrifice is not in vain. He did this to change the hearts of the people. Let us be worthy of him. When James left, for he received word that the disciples were being sought, it being feared they would set fire to the great temple or arouse the people so there was a revolt. There had been disturbances in the city, but because of Barabbas, only 3 were killed. Mary, the mother of Jesus, was taken to the house of John, and Marcus and Joseph also came there. It was in that hour that the first words of this gospel were written. Many of the disciples had deserted Jesus and were in hiding. Others went about not knowing what to do, their hearts full of misery and sorrow. They lacked the influence needed to save Jesus from the common pit of criminals. And Mary, his mother, did not claim the body, though the arrangements made were unknown to her. Now, one of the elders of the Supreme Council was a man named Josias, called Joseph of Arimathea, son of Joachim, son of Nathan, son of Eleazar, son of Elihu, son of Joachim, son of Zadok, who lived on the Merchant's Road, a day's journey from Jerusalem. He also owned an estate northwest of the city. He had a brother-in-law named Nicodius, and both were secret followers of Jesus. Joseph of Abratharma, the wise commander, had been present at the council when it sat in judgment of Jesus, and he supported him, but many more who could have done so were absent because of the hour. When evening drew near and Jesus had been 4 hours on the cross, Joseph of Abratharma, being a man of status and authority, went to Pontius Pilate without fear, for they were friends. He requested the body of Jesus, his kinsman, saying, It is written in our law that the sun shall not be permitted to set on the body of a murdered man. The governor said, You are an upright man, and I will not deny this to you. But he was surprised to hear Jesus had died so quickly. And he sent for the centurion in charge of the execution, a man known to Joseph, who assured Pilate that Jesus was undoubtedly dead. On hearing this, Pilate granted the commander custody of the body, and though some Jews present objected, wishing Jesus to be buried in the criminal's pit, they had to submit to Roman law. Yet the Jewish law also stated that it was the duty of the nearest relative to dispose of the body, irrespective of how death occurred. This now being the Sabbath eve, the bodies could not remain upon the crosses after nightfall. Therefore the Jews requested of Pilate that the legs of the condemned men be broken, allowing the bodies to hang freely so they quickly died. So the soldiers took mallets and broke the legs of the other 2, but when they came to Jesus, the centurion said, He is already dead. Joseph the commander took his son Joseph, Nicodius, and 1 other, and having already purchased a linen shroud, went to the place of execution and removed Jesus from the cross. Wrapping him in the sheet, they carried Jesus through the darkness to a tomb already cut out of rock. It was a 2-chambered cavern northwest of the city, having a ledge running around the inside, and the entrance faced eastward toward the place of execution. It was the north end of a garden planted with cabbages, and the gardener was also custodian of the tomb. When Jesus had been placed inside, a great stone was rolled across the entrance, and 2 men were left on guard beside it. Now things happened on the Sabbath which may not be written, for they are in the secret of the Lord, known only to the elect of the house of God, which is in the isle of departure. Those who guarded the tomb, when questioned regarding these things, said, The disciples came early and carried him away for a burial in a proper manner at another place. For he was laid here only because of the Sabbath, and it was not his tomb. None questioned them further, for this was proper. And the guards were only placed to protect certain bodies from those who would work evil sorceries on them, those who improperly tampered with bodies being put to death. After the Sabbath was over, some women came with spices and oils to deal with the body of Jesus. But when they came to the tomb, they found that the great stone had been rolled aside. The guards were gone, but a young man was seated just inside the entrance, and said to them, "Do not be afraid of me, for I am a friend. Jesus, whom you seek, is not here, but go and tell Peter that he will be with him as promised." The women were much afraid and left in haste. When they had gone, Mariam came with another and stood outside the tomb weeping. And as she did so, a voice behind her said, "Why do you weep?" Turning, she saw the gardener and said to him, "They have taken Jesus away, and I have no knowledge of what has happened to him." Then the gardener told her to go to John, the son of Annas. Peter and two others were also making their way to the tomb when they met the women coming away. The women told them what they had seen and heard, and Peter, thinking they were talking wildly through sorrow, sent one of his companions to go with him. Then he hastened to the tomb, arriving to find it empty and no one there. So, being perplexed, he sat down outside, while the other went in search of the gardener. While seated there, he saw a shining figure in the gloom within the tomb, and knew it for a spirit messenger. And he heard a voice saying, "Jesus has fulfilled the promises, and is truly the chosen one, God's anointed." Then the other returned with the gardener, and told Peter to go and meet John, the son of Annas, at Emmaus, about 9 miles distant. And they went to that place, which was a village not far from the house of Joseph of Arimathea. Arriving there, they found John, the son of Annas, and another John, and James and Joseph, the sons of Joseph by Anna, his first wife, the fair stranger, his son by Mary, and Mark, his adopted son. Nicodius was also there with Lazarus, and they were all in the house of Hosius. Later a number of envoys came. Then, while they were seated at a table, Jesus came among them and said, "Let us take food together and rejoice, for the prophecies have been fulfilled regarding the chosen one, as it is said in the holy books. The servant of man is arisen from among those who sleep, for death has not claimed him. But these things, while fulfilling their promises, will not bring about the rule of God, for this will not come while men sit waiting for signs. The people have been given that which fulfills their hopes and aspirations. Now surely they will believe in my cause, and arise to sweep aside evil. Now the Spirit of truth dwells among you, though it is still out of place in a world under the rule of man." Then Jesus told of all the things which had been written in the holy books concerning these things, and how the chosen one, God's anointed, would be disowned by men, would suffer for their willfulness, and arise from among the dead to appear on the third day. Then he said, "Are not all these things fulfilled in me?" Then he departed. Some days later, all the disciples who were chosen of Jesus met in a secret place, and Jesus joined them and proved himself to those who still disbelieved. And they said, "Sire, forgive our disbelief, and forgive us for doubting the things you taught concerning yourself." Jesus said, "This is the day of the coming of the Lord, who will rule the earth. Yet is it not written, 'This will be a day of darkness and not of light'?" Then Jesus spoke these words, "I go to a place far away beyond the world, where you may not follow, for I fulfill the hopes of all men. Now go you out, carry the message that the prophecies have been fulfilled, and the time is at hand when the rule of God should be established among men. For the promises having been fulfilled for the people, surely they will now believe and rally to the cause of good, sweeping wickedness and evil from the face of the earth. Say to them, that has been done that had to be done. Now you must take up the burden, for if you would become children of God and reclaim your lost heritage, you must prove yourselves worthy heirs. Let not all the suffering be in vain." Then he told them secret things concerning the rule of God, and how men should be freed from trouble, distress, and pain. He explained how each man could be freed of all sickness and see beyond the range of the eye. These and many other things he explained, and also many things concerning the dominion of the Spirit. He said, "Follow my teachings, and the power of the Holy Spirit will come to you, enabling you to do many great things, causing wonder among others. Yet all things are the rightful possession of men, if they will but establish their worthiness. Think not that God will descend from heaven to do the work of men. The world is yours, but life is with God. In the end, there is an accounting. Man must be responsible for his own destiny. Seek no divine intervention while men remain apathetic. God comes to the aid only of those who strive, who surmount the difficulties and obstacles of life. Having said these things, Jesus revealed himself to them in his form of glory, so they might know truth had been established in him. Then they were all bedazzled and astonished at what man could become and the extent of his powers awaiting development. Then they knew Jesus was all he claimed to be, and hailed him as Christ, the anointed by God, for in him the Spirit of Christ was manifested as in no other. After this, Jesus left. Now rumors of strange events came to the ears of certain Jews, who were Herodians and Sadducees. Then they were exceedingly angry with those in power who had inclined towards Joseph, the wise commander. He said to those who raised their voices against him, "Why do you seek to stir up trouble? Those in high places, holding positions of power, did only what they thought best, and complied with the law. What else could they do? I received the body of my kinsman because that was my duty, and I dealt with it decently, letting it rest in my private tomb over the Sabbath." Despite his authority, there was evidence against Joseph, and he was imprisoned, being kept under constant guard. One Sabbath, during the night hours, the Spirit of Jesus was projected to Joseph, so he was comforted, but the guards, seeing it, fainted with fear. Then Joseph was brought before Pontius Pilate, but the governor found no fault in him, and he was released. Later, Annas and his son-in-law, who were then the high priests of Jewry, came to the house of Joseph, bringing with them the holy books written on scrolls within their box. They requested that he swear upon it in the sacred name of Yahweh, but he made oath only that he had done no wrong or broken no law. The wise commander remained in his house for many days, after which he went about unmolested. Then, when Pontius Pilate returned to Rome, Joseph departed from his home shores, coming to Setnatoin, from whence he moved to a well at the foot of a hill. He brought with him a clay cup, which had been set in silver by a silversmith, and this was the cup used by Jesus. Some say Joseph married Holy Mary after the death of his wife, but this is a known heresy, put about by those in ignorance of what is written, for his wife was not that Mary.